Today's video is brought to you by Skillshare. Stop me if you've heard this one before. The HD560 is out now. It costs about $200. It seems to get really good reviews from anybody who touches this thing, but I can't decide between it, the HD58X, the HD6XX, and if you're gaming heavy, where does the PC38X fit into all this? Not to worry, I got you. There are some important differences. We're going to talk about all of them and help you pick the one that's going to be the right fit for you. You ready? Let's go. So the HD560S from Sennheiser is an open back, over-ear, dynamic reference headphone with a price point of around $200 USD. I'm not gonna spend a ton of time on build quality because these are classic Sennheiser and they have that curved singular yoke you're probably most used to seeing on the HD598, which enjoyed a reputation as a solid gaming headphone for a long time. Despite it being mostly plastic, I don't think longevity or durability has ever been a concern for Sennheiser stuff. These, like pretty much any other Sennheiser I've tried, have a pretty high degree of clamping force right out of the box, but they break in about a week or two depending on use. After that, they become very comfortable. One of the key physical differences I do want to point out is the cable connection. This is a single twist lock 2.5 millimeter that we've seen before on the 5 series, the Game series, the PC37 and 38X, as opposed to the split cable design from the 6 series and the HD58X. The main reasons for even including the PC38X in the comparison today is that 1, they're very good, and 2, they fall into pretty much the same price segment. But there are some people out there that would like a similar performer without this yellow and black color scheme, and some people out there like me that would like a similar audio performer without the mic attached. So I was really curious to see if the 560S was going to be an answer for that. For drivability, these come in at 120 ohm. That's versus 150 ohm on the HD58X, 300 ohms on the 6XX, and the major outlying 28 ohms of the PC38X that are specifically designed to be able to run on pretty much anything you could plug a headphone into. That, to me, lands this headphone squarely in the territory where you might not technically need an amp to get audio out of them, but I would recommend at least an entry-level DAC amp to really make the most of these. There's always been a key audio difference between the HD58X and the 6XX, which is generally agreed to be a 650 in different clothing. I really want to talk about that difference before we talk about how the 560S sounds. The 58X is more laid back in the upper mids and handles the treble just a bit different. So despite handling bass in a very similar way, it makes the overall experience a lot different. So for me, the HD58X sacrifices detail on the high end, and in exchange, I get more comfortable listenability. Like it's a little more fun and it's skewed slightly towards the low end, particularly at higher volumes. The 6XX is easily the more analytic of the two. It feels more neutral to me, borderline boring, but it's a personal choice. To help illustrate that bias, I generally prefer the house sound of Baird Dynamic over that of Sennheiser, with the exception of the DT880, which is too neutral for my taste. I have done a video comparing the 58X and the 6XX, but it's probably not worth a watch at this point, as I've learned and heard a lot since then, and it's embarrassingly uninformed by my current standards. But something that definitely is worth your time is today's sponsor, Skillshare. Take that, Linus Tech Tips. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of effective and inspiring classes for creatives and the creative curious who aren't sure how to take that first step into a new hobby or a new career path. Especially as someone who's self-taught, I can't achieve results, but there's definitely holes in my game from a professional standpoint that Skillshare is perfect for. Cinematography basics, understanding filmmaking style from Zach Mulligan really helped me to mate my shots to my scripts in a more organized manner that may allow me to bring on an outside editor at some point with minimal growing pains. And that's just one small example of something that I personally take away from Skillshare. There's content there about almost every aspect of being a creative. From photography, animation, marketing, personal productivity. There's no ads, so you never have to interrupt that creative headspace, and the courses are designed to be bite-sized sections, so it works even if you find yourself trying to steal time away from an already packed schedule to pursue something new. It's also less than $10 a month with an annual subscription. It's a ton of value. The first 1,000 of you to click the link in the description will also get a free trial of premium membership so you can start exploring your own creative path. Thanks again to Skillshare for sponsoring today, and thank you for your time. I appreciate it. So first impressions of the HD560S were basically two things. Number one, wow, there's soundstage here. Not massive soundstage, but noticeably better than both the HD58X and the 6XX. And two, wow, there's a lot of detail in the highs here and the upper mids without even bordering on harsh or sibilant in any area. If you've ever been conscious of the Sennheiser veil on the 6XX where it just overall sounds a little dark, you don't get that here, which is great. If you like a really flat, neutral headphone, this is it. It's fast, it's accurate. If you want low-end punch though, no dice. To me, these even lack the bass bloom you hear on the 5.8X and the 6XX, neither of which really are bass monsters. The 560S is flat, like you could mix in these no problem. The high end here is really the star of the show. Really detailed, really pleasing highs. It's just that when I want that downshift into the energy that the bass line brings, these don't deliver. For me. Now that's largely a personal preference, but you know how you like your music to sound, so you can make that choice for yourself. That same neutral approach, the detailed highs and the widened soundstage make them a great gaming headphone, which is how I've been using them primarily. And I say that in like I can only afford one headphone at this price point, so I need it to be something really versatile standpoint. There are arguably better suited headphones specifically for gaming out there at much lower price points. The PC38X has to me the best soundstage of the bunch, and what I perceive to be a V-shaped EQ. It gives you a lot of what I like about the high end on the 560S, but it brings bass to the table as well, and it does it without sounding dark. It's definitely not flat or neutral. There's a specific tuning on offer here, and they don't stand up detail retrieval wise to the 6XX or the 560S, especially at high volume. The answer to whether the 560S is basically a mic-less version of the PC38X, no, it's not. It's a different animal. The 5.8X is my recommendation if that's what you're looking for. Versus the PC38X, the 560S is more detailed, more neutral, less low-end response. As I touched on earlier with drivability, you can get away without using an amp with these, but they don't perform their best. The good news is that any decent entry-level stack can get the job done. Shit stack works really well, but in truth, just about any entry-level stack or DAC amp combo will handle these. I know the 6XX has a reputation for scaling really well on higher-end gear. I don't have any really crazy high-end amps here. My daily driver stack is the SMSL SU8 and the THX AAA 789, and I don't perceive a lot of difference in performance. If anything, that veil, that darkness on the 6XX is more prominent on like the Magni 3 Plus than the THX 789. The 789 is known for being really clean and transparent. That's why I use it to audit everything that comes through here. That, and it's capable of handling balanced cables like this one from Deconi, which I actually do use on my HD5.8X. A being the 560S against the 6XX on any rig I have here, I always find myself gravitating personally back to the 560S. Now, I can't sit here obviously and say that the 6XX is a bad headphone. It and the 650 are beloved by many. It's just personally not my cup of tea. I've owned my 6XX for a long time. I pull it out every once in a while to see if my taste or my ear has changed. It goes back in the box every time. If it's 6XX or 5.8X, it's 5.8X for me every time, even with its tendency to be grainier at high volumes than the 6XX. It's probably not a popular opinion, but I come from a consumer audio background, not an audiophile background, and the 5.8X just feels more lively and fun. If you live in a place in the world where the HD 5.8X is going to be significantly more expensive than the 560S, that changes the value conversation a bit, but obviously it doesn't change any of my perceptions of the audio performance of those headphones. The 560S feels like a spacious, open breath of fresh air in comparison to both, but it's a letdown for me personally in the low end. I can see an audiophile loving these. Despite being a dynamic driver, the overall character reminds me a lot of the Sundara. I could argue that the Sundara executes better, but there's also an argument that Sennheiser quality control is fairly sterling, especially when compared to Hyphamon's probably more negative than positive reputation for QC. All right, let's wrap this up. As a gaming headset, the PC38X is exceptional, but if you don't need the mic and/or gaming is not your primary focus, you'd be better served by the HD5.8X, even though you'll be giving up a little bit of the soundstage from the 3.8X in exchange for more detail on the 5.8X. Between the 560S and the 6XX, it's a tough call. Not for me, but for most consumers probably. On entry-level or mid-grade gear, I don't think scaling is a deciding factor. So you either want the neutral, linear sound of the 560S with that widened soundstage, or you want the heightened low end of the 6XX with the risk that the overall mix may feel veiled or dark to you and objectively has a more restricted soundstage. Me personally, if I could only pick one, I'm going with the HD5.8X, but I'm always wishing that it had the soundstage of the 560S. The only thing stopping me from picking the 560S is what I perceive as a lack of low end, but what is in reality just a more neutral tone overall. In theory, this could be tailored with some skillful EQing, but something like the DSP boost on the Mayflower Arc is just too heavy-handed for it. The natural warmth of a decent tube amp may be enough to get it done for you. The ZDT Junior at $400, which is sadly no longer available, is close enough for me on most genres. It's actually too much warmth for the 58X and 6XX, but it's seemingly perfect for the 560. So the TLDR, from the low mids up, I really like these. If you have $200 to spend and you want a fast, accurate, neutral headphone with loads of detail and an exciting soundstage, the 560S is a winner, for sure. As always, links down in the description for everything we talked about today. Any questions at all, hit me in the comments. And that's it for this time. I'm Brian P. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that sub button. And until next time, stay up.